What's the stupidest thing you've done at a family gathering? Got drunk in front of my great grandmother and started to shit talk my entire family in a baby voice to my baby niece. While the entire family thought I was out of line, my great grandmother thought it was hilarious and that I had valid points. Tell my sister-in-law that her kids, my nephews, are why I don't want kids. RIP. Good on ya though. My nieces, why I don't want kids. My cousins are why I don't want biological children. My aunt is so tired all the time. She has 3 kids, 2 whom I count as little. Not me, but my dad, as a kid, took a shit in the fireplace and went around bragging about it. My grandma still brings it up to this day. Hey, the fire is dying. Can you put a log in your /unbuckles belt? In my defense, I have epilepsy and was having a partial or a /mini seizure which caused this. I go into the kitchen and a few cousins are standing there with my aunt. I say sandwich, I think, but my brain was literally just reset about 20 seconds ago and I'm operating at an ultra dumb level. I remember this primarily because there was aftermath to recollect. I took mayo out of the fridge and just throw a spoonful, I think, at the fridge. I then take out cheese and throw it on the mayo, followed by turkey at the ground and bread somewhere. I look at it and just walked away. My family did not know I had epilepsy at that point in time. That was the icebreaker. Got drunk and told one of my grandmas she was my favorite, in front of my other grandma. It was Thanksgiving last year. I was playing Quiplash with my family. I entered my name and the next thing was my aunt asking who is rock hard, apostrophe. I was home from college on break and we were playing Trivial Pursuit. The question to me was something along the lines of what adult movie actress has the last name that sounds like the last name of the star of Hawaii 5-0? I knew the Hawaii 5-0 star was Jack Lord. Thought about it for a minute, then blurted out Tracy Lords. My parents just looked at me like I had just produced a severed head from my pocket. Not me, but at Thanksgiving last year my dad once brought out photos of the car crash that killed my grandpa and passed them around to my mom and her family. It was her dad that died and he talked for like an hour about how bad his death must have been. It was painful to watch as he had only died recently. Why would he do that? Exclamation mark. Question mark. Cause has a pose who did not see anything wrong about it. I have a family friend that does this. She calls me exactly once a year, on the anniversary of my dad's death, and interrogates me about the details and laments about how sad I must be. I suspect she's just trying to get me to cry in front of her, but cold fury doesn't really make me cry. Got absolutely hammered the night before and passed out in a snowdrift at the family snowmobile party. Fell off my sled and just laid there waiting for death to take me. Death took too long, so I got up and went back to the group. I'm pretty sure my dad knew what was up and felt that slogging around in the snow all day might teach me not to do that again. He was right. Haven't gotten out of control drunk since Christmas of 1995. I inadvertently went to a strip club with my parents when I was 22 years old. My mom had been ordering pizza from the new bar down the street and was raving about it one night. So we decided to go check out the new restaurant and try their pizza, just me and my parents, instead of having it delivered. As soon as we pulled into the parking lot my spidey senses went off, as I knew this place was known for having some seedy people hanging around. And it's always been some sort of strip club. But I thought, no way, my dad would know if it was a strip club. Has gotten pizza from here several times now. I couldn't have been more wrong. That voice in my head was telling me to turn around and run as soon as we parked, and 2 men were standing at the door sharing a pretty raunchy story with all sorts of lovely details as we walked up. We walked in the door, and as soon my family entered, it went silent. Every waitress and bartender stopped and looked at us. The strippers even stopped and stared at us. I turned to my dad, and before I could say anything, my mom says it's a strip club? Question mark. My dad, being the stubborn man he is, says I don't care. I want pizza. Never in my life have I heard of a strip club even selling pizza, let alone offering delivery. We sit down. I strategically placed myself so my back is to the strippers, and we place our order. 45 long. painful minutes waiting for our pizza and having small talk while two very overweight, out of shape homely girls take off their tops. Thankfully that's all they took off. Danced a few feet behind us. My mom finally asks where our pizza is, and the waitress comes back and tells us she forgot to put in the order. That was the last straw for my mom, who quickly paid the tab and we left, hungry and scarred for the rest of our lives. We still laugh about the day we went to a strip club together for pizza. They shut down a few weeks later, so I never did get to try the amazing pizza my parents raved about. I wanted to throw an empty bottle of water at my cousin, and I hid my sister instead. It was a wedding. My sister was the bride. I asked my brother-in-law how his dad was doing, had significant health problems, forgetting that he had died 6 or 8 months prior. Not me but my oldest cousin on my dad's side said this at my great-grandma's funeral. Imagine if she moved. TBF. When I was a teen at my godfather's funerals, I had to refrain a crazy laughing bit imagining just that. While my parents were crying their eyes out in the middle of church, my godfather used to be a huge prankster and I suddenly imagined him just sitting up saying "Ha. Gotcha all, you losers." He wasn't religious at all, was young and I had seen him a few weeks prior. So the whole thing, along with the very religious ceremony, seemed very unreal to me. My parents still talk about that to this day, saying I got my sense of humor from him, meaning I laugh too much for my own good, haha. Wow. May he rest in peace. My brother had been overserved and was passed out on the floor in the middle of the group. He was only wearing gym shorts. Suddenly he woke for one brief second and pulled his shorts off. Was not wearing underwear. He had no idea where he was. He was just laying there nude in front of maybe 20 people. It all went completely quiet until my uncle spoke up and said that son of a bitch is hung. Funniest thing I have ever seen. Well, if he's gonna make an ass out of yourself and pass out, at least he got complimented while doing so. I was with a friend, Dennis, at his family reunion. He sees his cousin arrive with a friend in tow. My friend greets his cousin he hadn't seen in years with, "Hey Joe, you crazy cocksucker." His guest gets in Dennis's face very hostile about his phrasing. Dennis pretty much greeted everyone as a cocksucker, but the other guy insisted there were better ways of saying it. Nobody knew the cousin was gay before that, and in a small town it was a hell of a way to come out. I guess I'm going to have to change my greeting to "been a long time, you beautiful Methodica." Apostrophe. Once I walked into a baby shower for my cousin's wife and sat down in the biggest chair of honor, right in front of everyone, including the pregnant woman. My mom looked like she wanted to die. On my husband's side, all the women are house elves during family gatherings, and for years I figured showing up with food and booze was enough of a contribution. It wasn't. House elves like the slave ones in Harry Potter, waiting on the men hand and foot. I'd guess yes, it wasn't terribly uncommon, but I think it's slowly coming around. At 4 years old, I sat on my grandpa's birthday cake. They'd put it in the seatless back of the station wagon, where I had to sit, but neglected to tell me it was there and didn't have a cover over it. I was probably distracted plotting my next mischief and didn't notice I'd plopped my crazy little but down on it. My little tights and dress were covered with frosting and the cake was shot. Seriously, though, they shouldn't have been surprised. I never sat still. I once had a middle-aged college professor who said he was back east for a family reunion and mentioned he had a hot tub. Later, he overheard two of his aunts around the corner, "Do you know he lives in California and has a hot tub?" Apostrophe. Oh. He seemed like such a good boy growing up. At my grandpa's funeral I went around saying good luck. I was about 7 and I wanted to play in the graveyard while the others were standing around his grave. I ruined Thanksgiving because I was too high. I've shared this story before, but when I was a teenager I got a weed brownie from my dealer. I had never had an edible before, so I was super excited. I decided to eat it before Thanksgiving, that way I would have a nice high and all this good food to eat. He warned me that it was strong and to only eat half of it. I ate the half, and after like 15 minutes I wasn't feeling anything, so I decided to eat the other half too. I didn't know that with edibles it takes a while to kick in and wasn't instant like smoking. By the time dinner came by I was very stoned. Like too much for my own comfort. My aunt and uncle were there too along with my little cousin, who was like 4 at the time. I went upstairs to join my family and thought I could keep it together long enough for a quick dinner and nobody would be the wiser. That was not the case. I was so stoned that I could not look at anyone. So I just awkwardly stared at my food and gave one-word answers when my family tried to talk to me. It made things incredibly uncomfortable for everyone. After about 15 minutes I could not take it anymore. So I just picked up my plate and went downstairs to my room. My mom followed me and wanted to know what the hell was wrong with me. I admitted to her that I ate a weed brownie and was incredibly stoned and asked if she could just leave me alone because I was too high to deal with things right now. She was cool about it and waited until I came down from the intense high to yell at me about ruining Thanksgiving dinner. I hit on my cousin not knowing she was a cousin. I'm part of a really big family. I went to a quinceanera before one of my cousins met this beautiful girl. Her and I were flirting pretty hard back and forth when my mom walks up. "Oh good, you met Anna, she is your second cousin from your cousin Rita's marriage." I know some might say second cousins are different, but not in my family. Luckily my mom noticed and warned us as things were getting hot and heavy. A few knowing uncles and cousins were nudging each other. We were both pretty embarrassed and unsuccessfully played it off that we were just joking around. We did become really good friends still after that. No weirdness and its definition a funny joke between us now. Got wasted. I'd just lost about 70 pounds and my alcohol tolerance had gone with it, though I hadn't really tested it recently. And my husband's, then boyfriend's, family really likes wine. And I just kept topping off my wine without really paying attention to how much I was drinking. I became an uncoordinated mess and almost broke several gifts by accident. And I was still not the worst drunk at the party. 2 other people also got wasted and had a screaming match in which I was blessedly not involved. At my brother's confirmation, the whole family, almost 60 peoples, were sitting outside in the sun drinking coffee. I had a big idea as a 12-year-old to show them all how badass I was at doing Saltus on the trampoline. Guess what? I was a little too fast when going around. So I took the salto and my belly slammed down hard enough to beat the sickest fart out of me. I was just as surprised as the rest. At a pool party when I was 11, I yelled out to everyone to watch me swim the entire length of the pool underwater, dove in and almost swam right out of the bikini I was wearing. Made an abrupt dive to the bottom to adjust myself. Resurfaced to laughter and mockery. Not a family event. But the same thing happened to me at the public pool when I was like 13. Down with suits that tie. Took an edible before walking into the gathering. Was probably the most likable and social version of myself. It was awful cause then they expected me to be like that at all of the following ones, and that's just not realistic as the gay cousin of our traditional Christian family. Walked 2 blocks to a bar with the entire wedding party in my family from a cousin's reception, my mother included. At some point she was ready to leave. I walked her back to the hotel and made sure she got into her room. I decided to walk back. For 1, I didn't know what time it was, and for 2, drunk me took forever to make it back to the bar. Arrive back at the bar. Nobody is there except for staff that are closing up. Sit on the curb outside the back of the bar and pass out. Wake up being slapped in the face by a police officer. It was 3 AM. I had been passed out in a parking lot for at least an hour and a half, and I got driven back to the hotel by a police officer. Hard plastic backseat in the squad car. One Christmas, my family gathered at Graham's for dinner. One of my cousins brought a karaoke machine. This turned into everyone participating, but not just participating. Being made to pick a song and sing and dance in front of the rest of the family. Horrifying. So many terrible vocalists attempting to win a Grammy. So impaired with my cousin, brother, and uncle, we decided to pick something easy. I don't recall what, but it was an upbeat, does not require vocal talent type of song. As we sing, we're kinda throwing up hand signs as we're going. Well, my hands don't exactly cooperate, and I end up throwing 2 giant middle fingers up. I died a bit inside when I look over and see an aunt is recording my awkward childhood. Immortalized forever. Instrumental introduction. Main theme. Trumpet stops momentarily. Tequila. Middle fingers rise up for all to see. Captured in video for future generations. I have a cinema room in my house fully kitted out. I use it as a room for growing tomatoes though. Decided one Christmas to host at my place and invited the whole family over. I had only been living there for a few years and growing tomatoes in the cinema room was normal to me and I didn't really think about it. Nephew found tomato room and I paid him $100 to keep his mouth shut. Stuck to his word. Surprising for a 12-year-old. I just remember a family wedding and everyone at my table started to use the tablecloths as bandanas. The same tablecloth? I'm just imagining a group of people walking around the hall tied together by a tablecloth. I have an uncle who has been married multiple times. This uncle did not come to my wedding for God knows what reason. I asked why he couldn't come to my wedding, but I had been to 4 of his. Cards Against Humanity caused us to have to explain to grandma what buttcake is and why as kids were laughing so hard about it. We tried playing that on Christmas one year. My stepdad was really drunk and found the jerking off into a pool of children's tears card for the first time and ripped it in half. It wasn't their game and he didn't know that. Everyone started screaming and he just dipped out. Then my mom kept aggressively trying to get me to give the card from my boyfriend's deck to the family friend whose card had been ripped, and I was like lol nope. That's the best card in the game. Needless to say, that didn't go over very well, but him not giving up something that's not even mine. You know, we refer to this as the year stepdad ruined Christmas lol. He breaks it, he buys it. Took an edible with my wife on Easter one year. We don't ever smoke or take edibles, but for some reason we thought it would be a good idea since we were hosting her side of the family. After 30 minutes and uncontrollable laughter between her and I, she went to the room and couldn't leave the bed. That left me to entertain everyone and make sure food was happening. All while I was high as a kite. Everyone asked me if she was okay, and all I could do was laugh. Her cousins picked up on what was going on, so I had to tell them. After a couple hours of holding out, she was well enough to come out, and I went in and passed out. Needless to say, it's brought up at every holiday with her family, and we haven't had any since. I was in my young 20s, had only just started drinking beer and didn't know it can freeze. I put a few in the freezer to chill them faster during a holiday gathering. Later I went to grab one, and it seemed fine. But I didn't know it had already started to freeze. I was talking to my sister's boyfriend in the middle of the kitchen while holding a beer I just opened. Somehow it exploded and I didn't notice. And it shot like this beer slush up onto the ceiling above me. I took a step forward while not paying attention and the slush came back down all over my head with the entire family watching the whole thing happen. At a family reunion I brought up how my cousin was on Girls Gone Wild. That didn't go over well with my aunt. I haven't seen her video. Told my very religious great aunt that the only god I believed in was Thor. This was right after seeing the first Avengers movie and I was still pumped a bit. It might have been cringy, but yeah, I'd say this to a hyper religious person to see their reaction. I'm religious myself, but it's still fun to watch them get angry and can't articulate their reason why. I'm religious, but my first question is, isn't Thor part of a pantheon with at least a father, Odin, and a brother, Loki? Why would you only believe in Thor and not his family and extended pantheon? Apostrophe. Especially given some of the others showed up in the movie. I'm in an overthinking mood apparently. If you enjoy watching these videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like this video. Thanks.